Hello, and thank you for listening to this episode of the Moore's October Rant Series. Today, I wanted to... I've always wanted to make an episode about this, but I kind of put it off because I had other things to talk about. That were more important at the time, but I wanted to make an episode. I'm laughing because, I'm so passionate about this, but... I didn't make an episode till now, but I wanted to talk about, budget phones versus flagship phones. I never really saw the purpose or reason to buy a flagship device because you can get a budget device for very cheap money, My phone was $300. I have a Motorola Moto G Power 5G 2023. And I spent $300 on it. It has 5G, obviously 5G, so it has 5G support, 6 gigs of RAM, 256 gigs of storage, internal storage. It has a 50 megapixel camera. It has 120 hertz refresh rate. On a budget phone, that's pretty impressive. It has a full 1080p HD screen, which is damn good, and all that for $300, and that's quite impressive versus a phone that's like $1,400, and you get pretty much it may be a little bit faster, but these budget phones are really getting good. And if you use a budget phone, if you just do regular things like call people, browse Facebook or Instagram, and you just text message and watch a video, you don't really need a $1,500 phone. And this goes for iPhones, this goes for Android phones, but never really saw a reason to get such an expensive phone when I could get the exact same thing for cheaper. But people still love to go out and they love to buy these really expensive phones that they can't afford. And I don't know, I think it's just a preference thing. They see it's cheaper, and they see that it's a budget phone, so they automatically think that it's gonna suck, so they don't actually go out and buy it because they just don't think it's gonna be good. But a lot of these budget phones, like I said, are really getting good. 120 hertz refresh rate in a phone, that's like a flagship feature, and I'm getting it. And it's just, this phone has a lot of stuff. And another thing I never really understood about people that like Apple is that Apple phones don't really have any third-party app support. They don't have a lot of different things that Android has, and never really understood why people prefer Apple. They took away the headphone. Granted, Android is doing these things too now, but for the longest time, Android had a headphone jack and Android had an SD card, SD card support. Apple's never had an SD card support, but Android has, and that's one of the things that makes Android better in general is SD card support. But now, I'm talking in the past. I know for the past 5 or 6 years, some Android phones have gotten rid of SD card support, but for the longest time, all Android phones had that. And that was one of the things that was, a plus over the iPhone, is you had expandable storage. So some phones could hold up to over 500 gigs of external storage on a card. I do that. I have 512 gig SD card plus 256 gigs, so that's 700 gigs altogether. So yeah, that's one of the reasons why. And I have a headphone jack on this phone. A lot of different features that my budget phone has that a $1,500 iPhone doesn't have. So really pay attention when you're buying phones. That's my rant today. Really pay attention when you're purchasing different types of phones, because a phone can look all fancy and great, but a budget phone will have more features and more stuff on it, like a headphone jack, SD card support. So really think, do I need a $1,500, $1,300, $1,400 phone? Do I need this fancy phone? Or should I get a phone that's $300, $400 that literally does everything I need it to do? It has all the features. It's just not as expensive, and it's not like these flagship phones, like really think about that when you're buying a phone, because most people could get buying a budget phone. Like these budget phones that are $300, they're pretty fast. You can tweak them in the settings and you can change some things to make them a lot faster than they are. And I really do recommend looking into budget phones before you go purchase, like especially with Android, like these flagship Android phones. But, if you're an Apple fan, you like Apple devices, then you can't really get a budget Apple phone. Like you can get one that's cheaper. Like you could go out and buy like an iPhone like 8 or iPhone 10. Obviously it's going to be cheaper. I'm not going to talk there about that, but I'm just talking about Android because, some people, like when it comes to Android versus Apple, it's just their preference. It's just like PlayStation and Xbox. Some people like one over the other. It just feels right to them. That they like the way it looks. They like the way it feels, how it operates. It's just a preference thing. And, as long as you can afford it, then go right ahead, I'm talking to the people that like don't have the money and they still buy things that they think they should have, but, if you can afford an iPhone, you can afford these really fancy, expensive phones, and it's absolutely nothing to you, go right ahead. But people that cry about saving money and wanting to save as much money as possible, and then they're putting money down and paying for a phone every month they can't afford or don't even need. I'm talking about them, but you're always going to have people that have differences in what like their preferences for phones they want to use. But I just never understood that. But anyways, thanks for listening to this episode of the Morris October Rants, and I'll talk to you later, guys. Thank you.